if it's Sunday, it must be double the fun, double the entertainment. Yes, our first double header of a long season coming right up. We've had the opening game at the Wankhede Stadium. Now we're going to go around Mumbai to two different venues. In the afternoon, the Brabant Stadium, the Cricket Club of India, and later in the evening, it's going to be the D.Y. Patil Sports Complex on the outskirts slightly of the teeming metropolis. The first game is going to be the Battle of the Metros, and that's what we're looking forward to right here, right now. Delhi taking on Mumbai, and later in the evening, it's going to be the Royal Challengers Bangalore in action against Punjab, the battle of two new captains. Welcome to Cricbuzz Live, starting in the afternoon, and we are joined by someone I spent some time with last evening and a brand new face coming back again, all the way from South Africa, Shaun Pollock. Ajay, welcome. But Shaun, welcome to the fold for the first time this season.
Yeah, good to be back, guys. Excited about this season. Obviously, the two new teams, who's going to end up on top. I'm still going to have to acquaint myself with who's where and who's what. You go through the lists, but it doesn't seem to make sense, does it, that certain guys are playing for different teams? But we'll get used to it as soon as we're into the tournament, and it should be great again.
Ajay, imagine if Shaun Pollock is saying, obviously he's far away from the action, but it's the teams themselves who are also going to be getting used to seeing an unfamiliar face coming before you in the batting order, having to toss the ball to, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I mean, I suffered that, what Polikaka was just saying. Good to see you, Polikaka. I missed out on a couple of players yesterday, and so it's bound to happen. And not just us. Shreyas Iyer, who was leading that team, didn't know who was in his 11 at the start, ended up winning the game. So, so many players, so many exciting things to talk about. Somewhere we do get confused at times. But, it's rolling. It's a new year. It's a new start. And cricket, as long as cricket is fun to watch and it's interesting, it'll be fun to go through this tournament.
But Shaun, among all the people we talk about, the captains will have their task cut out, particularly Rohit Sharma. I mean, obviously you put on a brave front once you've finished with a big auction like we had. But when you've lost the likes of the Pandya brothers, Surya Kumar Yadav still with an injury, so you are really talking about a new look side, despite all the old faces who might still be there.
Yeah, for sure. Top of the order also. He walks out with a different guy, no Quinton de Kock. It takes some adjusting. And I think the key is that everyone plays a role. And you know what your role is in that team when you've been in a campaign winning side for many, many years. And I think the challenge for them will be trying to get those roles sorted as soon as possible. You want everyone to settle down. You want them to identify with what they have to do. I think it's also just the reliability. Often you leave a situation, well, we go in the first six. If it doesn't go according to plan, Surya steps in. If we leave a bit more, Pandya comes in and smashes at the back end. Which bowler do I go to in these situations? I think those are the adjustments that are going to be difficult. Rohit's had some very reliable people over many years. So he's just going to find who else he can turn to now, and who's willing to step up and make a name for themselves.
But Ajay, first and foremost, Rohit Sharma will obviously have to be looking at how he manages his resources, but he'll have to manage his own resources with bat in hand, because no matter what you talk about talismanic captains, Rohit has a huge role to play at the top of the order to provide the runs. This is what he's done since 2017.
Yeah, when you look at this chart and you look at these numbers, you think, are you sure you got them right? Because, with Rohit Sharma, white ball cricket now, even test cricket, he gets so many big scores. And when you look at those numbers, they don't actually justify. And partly could be, the man's been not thinking about just, his numbers. There's more on his mind. He has to think of the team, and the roles that he plays are different here in Mumbai. Part of it, he was batting at number 4 in the middle as well. So that's why probably the numbers look a little different, and they definitely don't justify the quality and the kind of player Rohit Sharma is. But things might change this year. I think one of the big changes, as Polikaka just said, the man who walks out with him, last couple of years, the man who walks out with him was generally the man who was supposed to do all the damage, and he was the one setting the pace. What we saw with Ishan Kishan and him when they were playing for India, I don't know whether they do the same thing here, was, Ishan Kishan was given a little more time, and Rohit was trying to, acclimatize Ishan Kishan into that Indian team. So when you start thinking that you have to look after somebody, then your certainty definitely, I think, goes up. So I see there should be a difference in those numbers that we saw, because if those numbers remain the same from a top order batsman, it's very tough for a team to then do well, because the top three are, you guys call them the engine room, or the ones who drive that train. So that engine has to be a little more stronger and a little more powerful. At least that averages need to go up. He needs to get many more runs.
Yeah, I mean, the familiarity, briefly, just to finish off on Rohit, Shaun, we talked about it yesterday with Ruturaj Gaikwad before he walked out to bat, and how will his mindset towards the game change with no Faf du Plessis at the other end. For Rohit Sharma, I mean, it's not that he's unfamiliar with an Ishan Kishan, but just the comfort level of having Quinton de Kock, and again, it's a South African who's providing the change. How much will that impact his own approach?
Yeah, South Africans are just such nice guys, to have them at the other end just makes you feel so comfortable, like you want to perform because you're with a South African. We're nice, we're friendly, we bring out the best in people. But he's done no job with Ishan Kishan. I just think the key is that in these teams now, you've kept your sort of backbone or your core. Those are the guys in many ways that you need to step up, particularly in the first 3 or 4 games. So this partnership, Rohit, with Ishan Kishan at the top of the order, if they can put on a 50 or 60, that sort of sets the whole game up. And then you 1, 2, 3 games into the tournament, everyone else starts to settle down. You see what different people can do. But I mean, the experience that Rohit Sharma's got, I wouldn't be surprised. Also, if it's a fresh surface, it haven't been used again so far in the tournament, maybe just to be a little bit circumspect at the front. He'll play his natural game. I mean, if there's a ball's there to hit it, I'm sure he'll hit it. But I would think maybe if he's looking to normally strike at like a risk rate of maybe 60%, maybe he brings it down to 40, just for the first few overs, just to get things underway and just try and calm everyone down.
Yeah, let's have a look at the Mumbai 11. What tends to happen this early in the tournament is there are caps handed out like peanuts, really. And the reason being, it's not just about a debutant. It's about, even if you make your debut for a franchise, you are getting a cap. So a few new names in there that we'll see. Tilak Verma was always going to be playing up there, the explosive left-hander from Hyderabad. Anmolpreet Singh slots in at number 4. These are the guys who are sort of compensating for Surya Kumar Yadav. Tim David, lots been talked about him. And down the order, again, an unfamiliar look, Ajay, with that bowling lineup to accompany Jasprit Bumrah.
Yeah, an unfamiliar look because we have Thumpy's joined that whole thing. But I'm glad to see, Tyle Mills, Daniel Sams, and Jasprit Bumrah, all three together there. Murugan Ashwin brings in a whole different style of bowling. So, even when he comes on, it's not a defensive mode at any stage. So looking at that, I like this. I like this better than what I saw last year, because I felt that they struggled with their bowling more than with their batting last year. So if you have a bowling side like that, which is looking to, attack all the time, I already see good signs for Mumbai.
Shaun, your quick reaction to just looking at that Mumbai lineup. There are a few players like Tilak Verma talked about domestically, and Tim David, who's been talked about across franchises in different leagues.
Yeah, I mean, these guys come in with reputations. They don't get picked up by Mumbai Indians if they haven't done something, locally or in their leagues individually around the world. And they've got potential. It's just how quickly can they settle in? And there's a certain standard. I think Mumbai Indians demands a certain standard from people when they come in about what they should achieve and how they should perform. But the variations are there. I think that's good. There's a nice mix. Jasprit Bumrah, he'll lead the attack, and he's been just brilliant in any format that he's played. So, as I say, that backbone is still there, and the opportunity is for guys to make a name for themselves. And I like the different options that they have. And they got plenty to turn to, particularly on this kind of surface. I mean, they were very successful. I think it was about 2013, 14 when they played a few of the games on this pitch, and they used their variation. Someone like a Pollard even came into his own even more and more. So we'll see how that goes. But they have got most bases covered, particularly bowling-wise. Whether the young guys can take their form into the RPL that they've produced domestically, with the bat in particular, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, it's a big franchise. Come what may, once you make your way into it, I think as Shaun rightly said there, if you've got into that 11, let alone into the squad, obviously they've seen something that maybe the world hasn't seen yet. But let's talk about Delhi, Ajay. Once again, I think we're going to echo this about all franchises this early in the tournament. But definitely again, the mix is not quite the familiarity. And please note, there are only 2 planes in there, 2 overseas players. We knew Tim Seifert would play. Rothman Powell gets in there with a couple of overseas guys yet to come in, the likes of David Warner.
So who they left out? I mean, because they had the option to play another couple of them, but here it seems like it's almost a league tournament. They want to start off. They're not sure about certain players. So whether it's Mandeep Singh or Lalit Yadav, which one will stay if you bring in another international player? Kuldeep Yadav, I think, is an interesting one for me because, yes, he's been brought back into the Indian side. But when you look from a franchise point of view, you're looking to win games and looking not to develop players for India, whereas IPL was created for that. But most teams actually look at players who are going to do well for them. So I'm glad to see him. I'm happy to see him because he's had a real tough time. So he is a man that I have my radar open to see how he's going about. And Rishabh Pant actually probably enjoys playing with him. Maybe that's one of the reasons that he's been picked as well.
Yeah, Shaun, one more look for you, the Delhi lineup. This is something unusual we're seeing, at least at the start of this year. Normally, we talk about 4 overseas players. Even if a team goes in with 3, eyebrows are raised. Where are they? Are they all okay? Well, this is, of course, a few players coming in from overseas, but 2 is unusual.
Yeah, it is very unusual. But, I mean, if you look at the players that they've retained and that they've got on board, so you've got Warner, Mitchell Marsh, Nortje, all those guys will just slot in. So I do get the point. Like, if you don't have to play someone who's maybe on the peripheries, try and get as much exposure for your Indian players as you possibly can, because you know that Warner will play the bulk of the tournament. When Marsh gets there, he'll play the bulk of the tournament. And when Nortje is fully fit, he'll slot in as well. So those other guys probably won't play anyway. So it makes sense to me, particularly if they've been playing in these conditions and they're ready to go, and they've obviously been in the camp for 2 or 3 weeks getting ready. I don't see any problem with it. There's not massive names that they're leaving out that you're thinking to yourself, gosh, how do you do that? I don't mind it at all. I mean, it's going to be a matter of time before those big boys are back in the mix.
But I think the one endearing theme we've had from yesterday evening has been talking about the different captains. On the one hand, of course, the new captains, and we're going to see 2 more new captains in the night game. But what about the captains who are already there? What's the kind of vote of confidence they get from some of the stalwarts who are sitting on the bench? This is what Ricky Ponting had to say about Rishabh Pant. And I'll get Ajay's thoughts on that after we have a look at this. And the Delhi head coach says there's every opportunity for Rishabh's journey to be quite similar to Rohit Sharma, his opposite number here, taking over as a young captain of a successful franchise and growing on a daily basis. With some experience on a role like this, I've got no doubt in years to come that Rishabh Pant could be international captain. Those are strong words coming from someone like Ricky Ponting, who himself, in a sense, Ajay, went through a phase in his own personal career when he was a flamboyant batsman, but nobody thought of him as future captain of Australia. He was a bad boy.
Yeah, he was a bad boy, but ended up becoming the good boy and the leader. And so, I mean, I don't see, Rishabh Pant being that bad boy. Whatever little that I've known of him and heard of him, he's pretty good boy. He's actually a good boy. I mean, he may bat differently from everybody else, but he's not somebody that you hear stories about going out in the evening, having a brawl somewhere. That was, Ricky Ponting's younger age, but, we all mature and get better. But this probably will be the trend throughout the IPL. I mean, I heard Brendan McCullum yesterday talk about Shreyas Iyer and how he could go on to lead India. And there is an opportunity for all of them. You have an opportunity to showcase your talent. You've got a team. And at this moment, Indian cricket has had a few captains already in the last 3-4 months. So he's thrown in another hat. And, we'll wait and watch, because don't forget Ricky Ponting, the greatest, one of the greatest players there of his time. And, how he looks at cricket is absolutely right. But don't forget, each of them are doing a job for a franchise. They've been employed, and this is his captain that he has to deal with for the next, 14, 17, 18 games to win that tournament. And he's absolutely right. And when he comes up and says anything that he wants to, bring the players or, get something going for those players. So I would not go much deeper, because Brendan McCullum had a captain last night. Ricky Ponting has one today. We'll have a couple of more captains. They'll all go away, but we'll have to play with that Indian team. So I hope each of these guys are not thinking about just leading that side, because that could, spell disaster, because we've seen that with a couple of times. Polikaka's laughing. Everybody wants to be captain. So, it's a reality.
As well.
Yeah, there's KL Rahul is your vice captain. Jasprit Bumrah is another vice captain. So so please, I mean, it's great for Ricky Ponting and Brendan McCullum to make everyone India's next future captain, and I hope they help them become better. That's fine, but I think Indian cricket will decide who will be the next Indian captain.
But yeah, I think it's our tactic. It's our international tactic to try and get you guys confused in Indian cricket of who should or shouldn't be in charge.
But I think as South Africa, you guys have sort of grown up with a culture of knowing that someone like a Graham Smith becoming the national captain at 22. Now you've got with the likes of AB de Villiers and Faf du Plessis stepping aside. You're also looking for who's that future leader going to be. Temba at the moment leading the one-day side. Aiden Markram's being talked about. So you need to spot someone in a captain when it's talking about the national side.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you always got to be open to certain people and on what role they can play. I think the most important thing for you guys in the RPLs, I mean, obviously you do get the coaches who think, oh, this guy could captain at some stage. But I think it's just the exposure. I must admit, when I captained South Africa, it would be great to have guys who've got the experience of under pressure having captained a side. You can turn to them, ask them for their advice, get them to think about a certain situation. And that's the plus of this RPL, is that you've got 5, 6, 7, some young, some slightly older, who've all been given the pressure and the opportunity to captain a franchise and see what they can possibly do. So, I mean, that just matures you as a cricketer. It gets your cricket thinking brain on and can only help Indian cricket. But, you sometimes have one captain for 4 or 5 years. So it's a bit ambitious to go ahead and say, oh, this guy's a future captain or this guy's a future captain. Yeah, you never know what transpires down the line. But I still think it is good for them to mature in these franchise environments and get to know and understand it from a captain. I always said guys need to go to press conferences and answer all the questions that the captains have to answer, and then they'll play differently. They won't just go and play carefree cricket at times. They'll take on the responsibility because it's tough. You've got to make all the decisions, and you've got to also go to the off-field stuff when you've got to go to press conferences and answer why your certain players aren't playing a certain way. So it can only help.
There are some who I think just don't like it. I keep giving the example of a player like Thisara Pereira from Sri Lanka, who would walk into most T20 sides in his prime, but he hated the idea of captaining any side because he said, I just don't like going to the toss and being interviewed. I don't like going to the press conference in the evening. Let me play my game. And yet he ended up leading the side a few times. But one person, if we talk about captains over the years, just trying to imagine him being part of this magnificent T20 extravaganza, but came from another era, iconic captain, and there's a reason why we're talking about him today. Have a look at this, and then we'll get your thoughts on that. Yes, indeed. If you think of Kapil Dev, you think of an iconic Indian captain. Of course, you associated with 1983, Ajay. Turning point, of course, for Indian cricket was the actual victory at Lord's on the 25th of June. But a few days earlier, a week earlier, what he did at Tunbridge Wells, the world didn't get to see it. But now, thanks to Airtel 5G, we are getting to be able to recreate that with technology. But forget the technology part. What did 175 mean for Indian cricket?
175, I didn't get to see it. Most of us, nobody got to see it unless you were there at the ground. But at that stage, if you didn't win that game, you didn't get into that semi-final. And if you didn't get into, qualify, you would not be winners at the end, at Lord's. So I think it means most because it's one of those jigsaw puzzle of winning the World Cup. It was probably one of those puzzles that you really needed almost a bridge from a team that had never won many games, team that was not thinking of qualifying. That game, if you'd lost, you didn't qualify for the knockouts. So, that made the bridge to your knockouts. And then, we all know the story, and especially now, if you've been watching the movie, anybody who's watched that movie 83 would have seen that story, how important that innings was.
Yeah, of course, for those of you who maybe don't go that far back and are wondering why we're talking about in the relatively modern era, why would a game not be telecast? Well, there were 4 games happening simultaneously in that particular World Cup, and the BBC were just overstretched slightly. There was a strike, which meant that they could send cameras to only 3 of the 4 grounds. Australia were playing West Indies at Lords. England and Pakistan were playing. Sri Lanka were playing New Zealand, I think, and it was India, Zimbabwe at picturesque little Tunbridge Wells. And in those days, in all fairness, India weren't what they are today. Zimbabwe definitely weren't what they are even a few years later. So that game got the short shrift. But the iconic innings wasn't seen, but it's being seen and reminded to all of us. Shaun, technology, it's come a long way. I mean, a lot of people listen to that particular game on radio. Radio has its own charm. But to be able to see, to be able to maybe even choose your own angles, how much things have changed from 83 to 2022.
Yeah, it's become so thorough these days. I mean, I remember listening to some cricket on radios when I was a little kid, and that was all we had. You know, international cricket-wise, I saw a few tapes that came into South Africa from the World Series. We never got exposed to international cricket, so you just took whatever you could possibly get. And how things have changed. I mean, even look at our production here. You know, different parts of the world, we're coming together, we're discussing the game. And, you know, I suppose also a captain in 1970 was what you got told on the radio, whether he was good or not. Now we see it from all different angles, and we analyze, and why did he do this? Why did he do that? And I think it's a great thing. I just watched a clip on the presentation to have him almost in that visual way. It's just fantastic. And it's just, you wonder what the modern society is going to do. Give it 2 or 3 more years. You know, what's going to transpire. But yeah, technology has definitely changed, and I think it's made cricket a lot better in so many ways.
And of course, you can not only get this enhanced experience, but yeah, you can see that Natraj shot from an angle of your choice. You can bring the stadium experience into your own living room or even into your own smartphones. That's what Airtel 5G is being able to do for you. We're just talking about one iconic moment, but of course, this is also about technology doing this over a larger platform. So it's wonderful to be able to do that thanks to Airtel 5G. Now, I'm wondering, a few years down the line, if you've got Ishan Kishan out there batting, you'd love to see him from different angles, because he's kind of close to being a 360 type player once he gets going. And certainly one we talked about, Rohit Sharma at one end, Ajay, Ishan Kishan at the other will also have a big role to play. Maybe a little bit of pressure as far as the wallet is concerned. Or do you think he's beyond that?
I think the wallet would probably take the pressures away, except for when he walks out to bat. Every other pressure in life would be taken off. But when you walk in, I mean, Pollock, I just mentioned earlier, when you go to Mumbai Indians, there's always expectation. You know, the pressure at Mumbai Indians is totally different. Some people have been blessed to have, you know, embraced it and taken their games to another level. Some people maybe, you know, felt that pressure too much and didn't take their game to another level. In fact, it probably went down. Ishan Kishan was one of those who actually has taken his game to another level. One difference is, you know, when that was happening at Mumbai Indians, when Ishan Kishan came in, he was this young boy who could keep wickets, and he would get one odd opportunity. I remember when it really turned around, it was Saurav Tiwari who was supposed to play that first game, or he got injured, and then Ishan Kishan got a game. And then he's just exploded from there, and he's become the player that he is. Now, things are different. You know, he's a man who's been bought at that price that you said. So rather than, you know, taking the pressure away, it probably will weigh him down. I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't, because at the end of the day, that ball that's coming to you doesn't know whether you've been paid or you've been unpaid, or what amount of money that you've been paid. So if he can keep it clear, if his mind is clear enough to, you know, go out there and do it, because, you know, when you play for India, there's pressure as well, even if you're not paid. So when you go from IPL or Ranji Trophy to India, there is a huge jump of that pressure. And what we saw with Ishan was that, you know, he carried on playing the way he does here. So I expect him to carry this pressure with pleasure, and probably, you know, get repaid from the franchise after he does so well.
An interesting dynamic, Shaun. I mean, I was privileged enough to be at this year's auction. I was literally sitting 5 feet away from the Mumbai Indians table when that Ishan Kishan purchase happened. And I could see the explosion of delight among the entire franchise, Zahir Khan and company, delighted. But imagine, Shaun, Ishan Kishan sitting wherever he was and watching the celebration, knowing the amount of money, and then now having to go out to bat to try and repay that favor.
Yeah, but I think he mustn't be too internalize it too much. I think what we saw from him in that last game when they were trying to qualify, he came out and played with a real freedom. Was it in Abu Dhabi? And I think that's the Ishan Kishan that they need to try and promote. I do think he's better than just a basher too. I've seen a few innings for India where he's showed a bit of maturity, and it's not his day, but he's not just going to throw it away. He's going to work out a way of how he can be successful and play in good partnership with Rohit Sharma. I think that's also key. Sometimes Rohit will come off to a flyer. You have to play second fiddle. Other times Rohit might be struggling. You need to step up. But I think that's the key for the management there at the Mumbai Indians. They were excited to get him, but now they need to try and take the shackles off him and say, listen, just watch the ball. You try and play with that freedom. We know you've got ability. And I think, he's young enough that he should be getting better over the next 2 or 3 years. So the more international cricket he plays, the more he deals with the pressure of the IPL, the expectations. If he gets that right, he should become more consistent and an even better acquisition for them.
Quick one to finish with. Ajay, we briefly talked about it yesterday, but today is a fresh day. We're about to start the game. Shardul Thakur, new role for him, of course, new franchise. But as you mentioned yesterday, he's more used to being that fourth, sometimes even fifth option. Now he'll be leading the attack pretty much.
Yeah, a different role for him and a different side and different mindset. Last couple of years, there you go. Those numbers tell you. How he's grown as a player. Averages have got better, economies have got better, and he's grown as a player. But what he's done in year 2021, 16 games, the strike rate and the economy was off a bowler who was not the bowler in the side. So how he adapts, I think the numbers probably could be similar as well. But will that impact that he had at Chennai, or the moments that he was used at Chennai were totally different from how I think Delhi will probably use him. I don't know whether he has that temperament of starting with that new ball, holding that innings together, because he's a man who always is taking chances. He's not one who's going to set the pace. I think he likes to get involved in a game, whether it's bowling or it's batting, when chips are really down and there you need something maverick to happen. He's one of those maverick players, but not a guy who comes in and day out and delivers for you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of a horse racing analogy for those who follow that sport. There are some horses who like to be out there in front and continue to do that. But there are other horses who see a few in front of them, and that's what motivates them. Shardul almost likes to come in, as Ajay said, when the chips are down, when he's number 2, number 3, number 4. Different role for him as a fast bowler, Shaun?
Yeah, I think he'll shoulder the responsibility. I don't think it'll be a problem. I think he's one of those guys who takes the game by the scruff of the neck and whatever opportunity he's given. I just think the role might evolve a little bit as this tournament goes on. I think he found his little niche at Chennai and was very effective in what he did. We'll have to see where he can maybe squeeze it in and as the tournament goes on. But as far as being willing to take on the challenge, no issues there.
Well, he has been handed the very first over of Delhi's campaign against Mumbai. Gentlemen, we're going to give you 30 seconds to think about a number for what Mumbai will post here. In the meantime, I will let all of you know about our joy factor question for today. We had an interesting one on Saturday night. What's our question for our doubleheader today? Chris Martin and Bruce Reid are 2 of only 3 Test cricketers to be part of an unusual list. Which Indian is the third? Chris Martin and Bruce Reid. They both sound very generic names. Music lovers, of course, will go in a different direction with Chris Martin. But yeah, we're talking about Chris Martin, the New Zealand fast bowler. Take your pick, find your answers. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live. Get it back to us. For now, hashtag what's Mumbai going to score? Shaun, would you like to go?
I'm going to go.
You got yesterday horribly wrong, by the way.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm just 155. It just feels like a good number to me. In fact, 157.
157. It's a middling kind of total. Ajay, you think you're smiling. Does that mean you want to go higher?
No, I mean, my number every day it starts same. It's just the inflation over the years has taken it from 183 to 187. So I stick to 187 at the start of every innings.
All right. 150 is 187. I'll go somewhere in between to 177. I'll go for a 177 somewhere in between. Playing safe for the moment. Quick reminders. Of course, today being Sunday, we're back on Cricbuzz Plus with Match Party. You saw Joy Bhattacharya giving us a question. He will be part of this. He likes a good party and he'll be very much in the mix. Get set, match. This is a watch along. And you can have lots and lots of fun. We'll, of course, be there from morning till night, till the end of the second game. quick word, Shaun. Many congratulations to your South African girls for getting into they're already in the semi-final, but for a great victory, unfortunately at India's expense. Fantastic at the end from Mignon du Preez, who took them over the line. A no ball from Deepti Sharma. She'll be gutted, but nonetheless, well played India. Unfortunate, they're not in the semi-finals of the World Cup. For now, we'll focus on Mumbai versus Delhi. That's all we have on this pre-match show. We'll see you in the 10th over on Cricbuzz Combox. That's all from Cricbuzz Live.
Just go by our expressions. So.
And not only
At least for the first 2 Sundays, yeah.
And not only that, you are ahead of us also, Sammy.
How is she ahead of us?
She's a direct line to Cricbuzz Stadium.
ओह अब मैं सोचा कि 2 बॉल पिछले का शॉट बोल रही थी अभी मैं सोचा कितना पीछे है वो ओह अब तो खत्म मेरा तो हो गया 35 for 2 दे ही दो पनिशमेंट डेयर वेयर सोच लो व्हाट इज द पॉइंट ऑफ दिस फर्स्ट ओवर में ही सब खत्म
I have the punishment ready for you though. I've got the punishment. I've been told to think of punishments very early, so मैंने कर दिया अपना काम.
As long as you don't make me sing, I'm okay. कुछ भी करा लो. ट्वीट करा लो.
मनीष को गाना है क्योंकि लास्ट टाइम वो जो शो ऑफ किया था मनीष ने अपने इरफान के बाद जो
guys I think there was a network error. I was saying 45 for 2.
No.
But I think there was some network issue. I think you guys thought I was saying 35, but I was saying 45.
नहीं भैया ये स्कोर तो लॉक हो चुका है.
The last time I've seen that done is on my report card, where last minute changes to say that नहीं वो तो ठीक था.
ये लॉक हो चुका है. 36 का आंकड़ा मैंने इसलिए चुना है क्योंकि मुंबई दिल्ली के बीच होता रहता है.
Manish, give up. Manish, छोड़ दे यार, छोड़.
Okay, I think that was quite funny. Yeah, sorry.
हाँ, Bharat. Yes. Bharat, go and eat some good food. चल जा. What is this?
Compared to the